Greetings, fellow human beings. Are you on the road to recovery? Maybe you're in recovery, or maybe you're somebody you know is in recovery. I am specifically talking about drugs and alcohol, but also any kind of escape from life that you've been doing on repeat, such as food addiction or love addiction, sex addiction, technology addiction, workaholic, alcoholic. These kind of things stunt our growth here on earth, and they keep us very narrow. It's coping with life. That's really what it is. So since I stopped coping with life in those ways 5 years ago, I've matured and I've grown, and I know myself much more than I ever have. So I want to share with you some things that have evolved in me, and maybe they've evolved in you. This isn't a complete list. This is just what came to me. So I titled it Properties of Maturity, but it's more about the journey inward and about coming of age, coming into adulthood. Some of us come into adulthood early in life, which is not my story. I did a lot of adulting in my life. That's what the new term is, adulting, when you're buying houses and cars and going on vacations and having kids and working a career. You're checking a bunch of adult boxes, but are you really mature? Are you really growing in wisdom? Are you really being a responsible adult? Oh, good segue. The first one is responsibility. That's the first tenet in my speech here. Responsibility. Just look at the word responsibility. A lot of people think that responsibility is like taking care of the kids, paying the bills, going to work, etc., car maintenance. But responsibility is the ability to respond. The ability to respond to life. Do you have the ability to respond when life happens? I would have to say that I was very reactive most of my life, living on the edge of response. It was more of I didn't really have a lot of space between something happening in life with the kids or with the bills or, with the job before I had a reaction to it. It was more like boom, boom. And there was no pause. There was no waiting for the answer. That's what happens when our nervous system is very tight and reactive. You're in fight or flight mode almost permanently. You get kind of addicted to that fast pace that I have the answer. Like you get addicted to those chemicals in your body, the cortisol and the adrenaline. And then you kind of just live there and you think it's very efficient. You make excuses for, your fast thinking and reactive behavior. But that's not really the ability to respond. The ability to respond would be to wait for the right answer, wait for the right timing, patient, compassionate, loving, and kind, especially to our most dear ones. I can't say that I was always like that, but that's okay. We live and learn. And I would say that I am much better at that now. Meditation helped a lot. Slowing everything down. Nervous system regulation with my breathing, with doing a lot of yoga, a lot of therapy. Really helped a lot. This is about responding with awareness instead of reacting with impulse. Second one is emotional regulation. I kind of just talked about this a little bit. But emotions are energy in motion, and a lot of us don't like to feel emotions for some reason. We're never taught how to feel our emotions. We're taught to stop them, or taught to suppress them, because, parents don't know how to regulate themselves. Parents don't know how to deal with their emotions. And when you have a child that's dysregulated and throwing a fit or a tantrum, and the parent doesn't know how to deal with their emotions, they're going to tell you to shut up. They're going to tell you need to be quiet, or try to, distract you, or come down on you harshly and punish you for your emotions. So it's nobody's fault, really. It's just an awareness and a learning. So, over the last 5 years, that's what I've learned is it's okay to cry. It's okay to get angry, and when you can see the emotions happening, you can feel them in the body, and you can just let them flow. They happen very quickly. They're here and gone. And when we suppress them and we deny them and we escape them, they linger in the body for a very long time. They need to move, This is about learning to sit with your emotions, but not letting them run the show. So it takes practice to learn to work with your emotions and learn to let them come out. Awareness, meditation, therapy. Yes, go to therapy. I don't know why I gotta say that on every. This is about being in tune with the body as well. Everybody's living from the neck up. We gotta be thinking about everything all the time, and we don't have time for our emotions. We don't have time for a breakdown. We don't have time to feel what's happening in the present moment. We stuff them down, and we wait till after work, or we wait till a better moment, or we wait till we're not in public. Screw that. We're human beings, if we could let them flow, they wouldn't be such a problem. If we could let our emotions flow and not suppress them, we wouldn't be so neurotic. You realize that emotions are just temporary, and they're naturally occurring in the body. This is what it's like to be human. And when we learn to let our emotions come up, and we learn to be, we just naturally become less reactive. The third one is delayed gratification. This is a big one, because if we want, and we need to get, and we have this feedback loop of instant gratification, whether it's with food or shopping or sex, masturbation, anything really. You have to have what you want when you want it, and you're not going to stop until you get it. You get in this tiny little feedback loop of dopamine and other feel-good chemicals that are very short-lived, like a sugar high. Crash, crash. That's a volatile way to live life. But when we stretch out the gratification, when we delay the gratification, we also start to do different kinds of things for gratification. We start to create things. We start to do more longer term projects that feel good over time. These are different kind of chemicals that we get happening in the body, like serotonin. These are longer feel good chemicals. These are delayed gratification. These are, it might be a project for a couple days or a couple hours or a couple weeks, and that feels good for a very long time, much longer than the instant gratification, the vice on a daily basis that we're living in, this cycle of streaming and social media and likes, and that feels depressing. It's depressing. I mean, go on social media for 10, 20, 30, an hour, 2 hours. You get done and you're like, oh, I don't feel good. when I do that. We live in this era of like fast dopamine where we can get a quick hit. But what that does is dull our sensitivity to pleasure over time. But it's good to get curious about what happens if I don't do that. What happens if I don't satisfy that urge? What if I just sit here with it for a minute or two and breathe? You start to resensitize yourself to life. The smaller things start to be more appealing again. Urges rise like a wave and then they pass. That's what you'll notice as well. And every time you don't obey the urge, you get a little stronger. You reclaim a little bit more of your power. You get a little clearer. You get less controlled by cravings and more guided by intentions. Life slowly becomes more vivid again, and you start to resensitize yourself to life. This next one is about communicating directly and effectively. That sounds pretty beneficial. How can you communicate directly and effectively if you're scared of what people think of you? How can you communicate directly and effectively if you have no confidence in yourself, no confidence in your speech, no confidence in your knowledge? If you're not somewhat proficient in your job, if you don't know yourself, it's very hard to be effective in your communication because you're scared of what other people think of you. What if you get abandoned? What if you get rejected? What if you get ridiculed? That's you getting kicked out of the tribe. That means death, thousands of years ago. We don't live in that society anymore. We don't live in villages. We don't live in tribes. We still have a tribe mentality. You know what? How to overcome that, though, is to develop self-reliance. Make mistakes and be okay with it. You don't have to be perfect. You can just speak your truth clearly, and you can also receive feedback and be okay with it. It also means you don't have to be right all the time. You don't have to win every argument. You don't have to dominate every conversation. You can just be a part of. You can be a contributor. You can also lead conversations if you like, by increasing your knowledge about subjects, by learning to use your voice to communicate, to using your listening as well. If you practice deep listening in a conversation without trying to think of a rebuttal or try to think of a response, it's very satisfying. It's very satisfying it's kind of like generosity. You're giving, you're listening to them. You're hearing their words. You're understanding where they're coming from. It's actually very pleasurable. It's actually a mindful practice. So effective communication is a lot of listening as well. And you don't have to have a response. You don't have to. You can pause and develop a response if you like, but you don't have to. There's no obligation. This is about seeking understanding and being curious about what other people are saying. It's also okay to be wrong. And you can just say, yeah, I was wrong. I didn't understand that, and my response wasn't correct. It's okay to admit wrong. You can also say, I understand your perspective, when you don't have the same perspective as somebody else. Or I hear what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. And it's okay to have different opinions and different perspectives. That's how we come together as a community. We can have different perspectives. We can have different opinions. We can have a different way of thinking and still be respectful and still be loving and still be kind, compassionate. That shows the evidence of true maturity and evolution in your humanity. The fifth one is accepting uncomfortable truths. Here's a couple examples of uncomfortable truths. Some people are not like you. You cannot control the outside world. People will fail your expectations. And you will fail your own expectations. You're not as good as you think you are in some areas of your life. And you're better in some areas than you think you are. One of the hardest truths that people have time with understanding and taking in is that if you want your world to change, you have to change. This is kind of taking ownership of your actions and your interactions with people and life. It's not blaming life or other people. It's about taking responsibility for your own actions and your own words. It's not blaming people or situations for your problems. It's looking in the mirror. It's being aware of your blind spots. It's about asking other people how you can improve. It's about feedback. It's about being aware of your patterns and taking responsibility for your healing if you need to, and owning your own life. What if everybody took care of themselves? Like 100% took care of themselves. We wouldn't have, anyways. All right, this next one was like super hard lesson for me to learn, and it was really tough to enact, and that is boundaries. Boundaries for yourself and boundaries for other people. What we have to learn is that boundaries are not about restriction, it's about protection. It's about taking care of ourselves. It's about protecting our peace. Because if you don't have any boundaries, you're going to absorb other people's vibrations. You're going to be taken advantage of. You'll fall into traps that you don't want to fall into with relationships and overextension of your energy and, overcommitment, especially if you are a recovering people pleaser or codependent, or you just have a lot of empathy for people. There are other people in the world that will take advantage of you. And it's not their fault, that's just how they are. They just see an opportunity to get help and they lean too far on that help. And you might give too much and not have any boundaries about giving. This is about protecting what you hold dear, like love and truth and compassion. That's what boundaries protect. Some people have different opinions than you. They have different perspectives. They have different communication styles, and that's okay. Because that's on their side of the boundary. And on my side of the boundary, I have my own makeup of beliefs and perspectives and opinions. Creating boundaries around your time is super important as well, and your energy. Having boundaries means I don't have to control you to feel safe. And I don't need to abandon myself to make you feel okay. So this results in no unnecessary harm and no self-abandonment. This is good. Healthy boundaries protect peace. And they're a sign of self-love and respect for yourself. And other people appreciate that. And finally, thinking beyond yourself is the last one. So this goes to not thinking about yourself 24/7. Me. How am I feeling? What am I doing? How am I being perceived? Because we can get stuck in the head about that. We can get stuck in the mind, just very self-absorbed, self-consumed. And when we contribute, when we create, when we stop consuming and we start creating and providing service to our community, our friends, with boundaries, refer to the boundaries talk right before this, then that's really the juice of life. That's really coming into connection with other people, thinking beyond yourself. How can I contribute to my community today? Can I volunteer? Can I show up for a friend? This expands your concerns beyond your own wants and needs. Let's go to the love department. A lot of people are, especially single people, are, I need love, I want love, please give me love. But what if you gave love? When you give love, when you give a hug, when you give an ear to somebody and you feel it in your heart is open, you're giving love to them, you feel love. That was one light bulb moment in my last years growing up, is that I can give love. And when I give love, I get love, like automatically. I feel love. I'm the generator of love. Interesting. It's not, I don't get love from outside. I allow love to flow from inside. When I have somebody that I love outside, I'm just opening up my own heart to them. Therefore, I could do that on my own. Of course we need connection, and it's easier with somebody outside of us, but the more we cultivate that love from inside without a partner, without somebody loving us, the easier it gets. These kind of things do not happen overnight. They happen over time. So I'll just sum up here. So becoming more wise and coming into this more wise and mature self. So coming into this more wise and mature self, it's about learning to respond instead of react, to handle emotions without being tossed around by life, to be less controlled by every urge and craving. It's about speaking truth with love. It's about accepting the hard realities of life and honoring boundaries and learning to live beyond yourself. Always a work in progress. Thank you for staying till the end. I love you, and I'll see you in the next video.